Now, let's take a start with section 4. Complete the sentences below. We have sentence completion here. Sometimes in section 4, we can have sentence completion, sometimes one word only with sentence completion, notes completion. Remember, section 4 is always part of a lecture. What is it? Part of a lecture means one portion of a complete lecture. Okay? And in lecture, there is only one speaker. Listening part 1, there will be 2 speakers. Listening part 2, 1 speaker. Listening part 3, 2 speakers. Listening part 3, 2 or 3 speakers. There can be even 4 speakers. And listening part 4, 1 speaker only. So one thing common in part 1 and part 4, IELTS listening, is that we usually have one word only. In part 1 and in part 4, we have one word only. So techniques are almost same. And when you practice, you should try your level best that in part 4, you get 10 by 10. Part 1 and part 4, you get 10 by 10. That will improve your overall bench score. And if in actual exam, your listening doesn't go well in part 3, in part 4, you have one more chance to improve. Okay? So, complete the sentences below. Write no more than 2 words and or a number. Ceramics. You know ceramics? Yeah? You know we've got wash basin and all that. These things are made of ceramics, right? Yeah, ceramics. Ceramics date back. Date back means old, number of years old. And then they've used the word approximately. Now in listening part 4, whatever they use before the blank or after the blank, that is extremely important. Now I'm going to show you a magic. Underline approximately. And write there around. What are the other words for approximately? About, around, more or less, almost. Right? Now we understand when they use the word approximately, the answer is going to be a number. Approximately. And then they said date back. Date back means how old they are. Date back. For example, they say ceramics date back approximately 1,000 years. Something like that. So for date back, they might use the word old. Date back and old. For approximately, they might use the word around. And the answer is going to be the number. So let's see.
Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about the origins of ceramics. So first of all, let's start off with, what is a ceramic? Well, generally speaking, ceramics are what you get when you apply heat to certain inorganic, non-metallic solids and then allow them to cool. And examples of ceramics are everyday things like earthenware pots, crockery, glassware, and even concrete. So how did it all begin? Well, it all started around 29,000 years ago, when humans discovered that if you dig up...
It all started 29,000 years ago. Now, ago is date back. Around is approximately. So the answer is 29,000 years. If you don't write years, your answer is wrong. 29,000 years. Right? Now, how to write 29,000? 29,000. Right? 29,000 and then you can write years. Or because it's mentioned no more than 2 words, you can write 29,000, THOUSAND, 29,000 and then you can write years. But the best one is 29,000 and then years. So the answer is 29,000 and then years. Okay. The first figurines were made. If you don't understand what is figurine, don't worry. Take it as a word. Figurine, take it as a figure. The first figure was made in the area of, underline area of. Area of means location. And location can be the city, country, it can be like, Asia, Europe, or any other part of the world. What do we call it? Continent, exactly. City, country, or continent.
And so what did those first humans do with their discovery? Well, they created figurines, which were small statues and which depicted animals or gods or any shape that the clay could be moulded into. And all this activity was centred around southern Europe.
And all this activity was centered around, area of, centered around, and then they said Southern Europe. Now you will write Southern Europe or South Europe. All this activity was centered around Southern Europe. I'm playing it again. This last part. Okay, we'll play it from the beginning.
And so what did those first humans do with their discovery? Well, they created figurines, which were small statues and which depicted animals or gods or any shape that the clay could be moulded into. And all this activity was centered around southern Europe, where there is also
all this activity was centered around southern Europe. Good. In part 4, yes, there can be traps. Why not? Part 4, part 1. In full IELTS listening, there can be traps. Multiple choice, part 1, 2, 3, 4, there can be traps anywhere, right? No, it's not like that. Trap is something which is not the right answer. For example, now I make a trap for this question. If they say, people commonly believe that first figurines were made in the area of China, but in fact it was somewhere in Southern Europe. Now is the answer China? No, Southern Europe. So it's not that way you are paying attention. You are paying attention to complete thing. And then when you say some people believe it's China, but actually, you understand China is not the right answer when they say actually. Will you please speak English? So you need to practice for that. Now, if you are trapped, you need to practice. It means you could not understand. It means whatever you found, you wrote it as an answer. Let's see if we find more traps. Okay, early humans could not use their pots to store. Now remember, pots, store. So they might say early humans could not use their pots to store liquid. For example, right? Liquid or huh? No, it is not just ghada. It is anything. Pots mean bartan. Okay? So early humans could not use their pots to store. Now just focus not to store. Early humans could not use their pots to store. What is it that early humans could not store in their pots? कौन सी चीज नहीं रखी जा सकती थी? Let's see.
The early humans also found a practical use for their discovery, such as storing things like grain, although there were drawbacks. The pots were porous, so that although they could carry water in them, it wasn't possible to store it over a long period. And also,
it wasn't possible to store it. It means water. They said although they could carry. And for grains, they said they could store that. Right? So the answer is water. Good. Question number 34. Chinese improved the quality of ceramics by mixing dash. Now it's going to be a sort of material. By mixing cement, by mixing sand, by mixing glass, by mixing something. And underline the word mixing. For mixing, they might use the word adding. By adding dash. Right? So let's see.
But despite these problems, it was many thousands of years before there were any improvements. In China, at around 200 BC, they discovered that by adding minerals to the clay, they could improve both the appearance.
Okay. आप जैसे ठेकेदार ना रेत बहुत डालते हैं. By adding minerals, exactly, not sand. So minerals with the clay. Okay, question number 35. Chinese porcelain was also called. Now underline was also called. For called, they might use the word named. For called, they might use the word known as. K-N-O-W-N. Known as, named as, called. Or people, it was known as, and then whatever they say after that, it's going to be a term they use.
But it took nearly 1,000 years before they perfected the process to produce high-quality ceramics known as porcelain. And once they had perfected the process, they kept it a secret for another 1,000 years. Compared to the first ceramics, porcelain was lighter, finer, harder, and whiter, and became an important commodity in China's trading with the rest of the world for hundreds of years. In fact, it became so valuable that it was known as white gold, and spies were sent.
It was known as white gold. So it was called and known as. And for Chinese porcelain, they use the word it. It was known as. Question number 36. Botger added quartz and dash to clay. Two materials. One is quartz. Second material they will tell us in the audio. And these two materials were added to clay to make porcelain. Now listen to the audio and answer will come after quartz.
It wasn't until the 18th century that the secret began to unravel. A German alchemist called Johann Friedrich Botger was asked by the king to make gold out of lead. Unfortunately, Botger failed to achieve this and soon gave up. But in order to please the king, he attempted to make high-quality porcelain. And after many years of experimentation, he discovered that by adding quartz and a material called China stone to very high-quality clay,
by adding quartz and a material called China stone. Now some will write material. Yeah, material is not the right answer. And China stone. Okay, material called China stone. Okay, next we've got glass. Question number 37. Glass production is similar to clay ceramics. Apart from means the difference. Glass production and clay ceramics, they are same. What is the difference? Apart from the rate of dash. Now rate of something. Focus the word rate of.
We'll now look at another ceramic which is made from mixing sand with minerals and heating to over 600 degrees Celsius. When this mixture cools, the result is of course glass. The main difference between ceramics made from clay and glass is that clay is made up of crystalline plates which become locked together in the cooling process, whereas glass cools too quickly for crystals to form.
Glass cools too quickly and cooling and all that. So what's the answer? Apart from the rate of... Listen again if you still missed it. Listen from the beginning.
We'll now look at another ceramic which is made from mixing sand with minerals and heating to over 600 degrees Celsius. When this mixture cools, the result is of course glass. The main difference between ceramics made from clay and glass is that clay is made up of crystalline plates which become locked together in the cooling process, whereas glass cools too quickly for crystals to form.
Okay, glass cools too quickly, so it's rate of cooling. Glass cools too quickly, that's the rate of cooling. No, rate of के साथ cooling process, no, that's not right. You can write cool or cooling, rate of cooling. Because after of we use usually ing, rate of cooling. Okay, question number 38. Romans introduced the use of glass to make. Now with glass, Romans made something. Whatever they made, that will be the answer. Just focus the word to make. For make, they can use the word manufacture, create, or anything like that.
The origins of glass date back to 3500 BC, but it wasn't until the Roman Empire, 2000 years ago, that the art of glass blowing and the practical uses of glass became more widespread. One of the more innovative uses was to use it in windows, as up until then they had just been holes in walls.
To use it for windows, exactly. First they talked about Romans. Roam, and then they say use it for windows. So for make, they use the word use. Yeah. Next is concrete, the last one. Discovery of concrete is probably due to observing reactions of water and dash. Now answer will come with water. It's another material which was added to water, and then they check the reaction of water and that material. It can be water and cement. Right? Let's see.
The Romans were also responsible for inventing concrete. And although the origins are uncertain, experts think that this is largely due to the high level of volcanic activity in the area. The Romans observed that when volcanic ash mixes with water and then cools, it gets extremely hard.
When volcanic ash and water, exactly, it gets extremely hard. So volcanic ash. Question number 40. Ability to build large. Now for large they might use any other word, big, gigantic, or they can talk about it in certain way that it looks something large or big. So large means size. Ability to build large dash contributed to the success of Roman Empire. Something which contributed to the success of Roman Empire is the answer, right? Large.
One of the most important facts about concrete for the Romans was that it can be created underwater. As the Roman Empire grew, the Romans needed to take control of the seas, and for this they needed to build harbours capable of holding a fleet of ships.
They needed to build harbors capable of holding a fleet of ships. Fleet of ships means so many ships. So capable of holding a fleet means big or large harbors. Harbor is actually, on the beach, they've got certain arrangements for the ships to dock. So harbor, now you can write British spelling or American spelling. H-A-R-B-O-R-S American, H-A-R-B-O-U-R-S British. I play this part again.
The Romans needed to take control of the seas, and for this they needed to build harbours capable of holding a fleet of ships.
Capable of holding a fleet of ships means large. Yeah, this is for large, right? Okay. Alright, so now you should practice and remember, the way I taught you one test, all 40 questions, whenever you take any IELTS listening test, do it in the same way. Right? As I'm reading the question, and once you've done with it, there is one thing. Take one listening test. For example, out of 40, you get 28 correct answers. Okay, fine, no problem. Wherever you've got wrong answers, mark them. Now drag the audio up to a point where you had the wrong answer and write there the correct answers. Now reconfirm the correct answer from the audio. See what is the right answer in the audio and see what is the language that they use before or after the blank. If it is multiple choice, what are the wrong options? How do they differentiate? Once you are going to do IELTS listening like this, you will be able to teach yourselves IELTS. And once you teach I taught myself IELTS, by the way. I don't have any IELTS teacher. Anyone who taught me how to do all these things, I taught myself. And how did I do it? By doing it. The best way to learn anything is by doing it. So once you start doing it, you find your way. Now, for example, I don't know cooking. If I start doing it, after a couple of months, I'll be fine. I'll watch some videos here and there and finally I'll be able to cook. Okay? So you should also find your way like this. And again, commitment is the most important thing.